doing its thing. And I think we are up there. So, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Chaos Pantheon. This is the sort of podcast that combines the glory of all of the gods. And I mean, if anything, to go by the recent reveals, there'll soon be a fourth one on here. I am very sure, which we can maybe touch on today. But as always, I'm Aidan Smalley. I'm from the Disgusting Resilient podcast, representing the grandfather Nurgle and his plagued sons. In the red corner, we have.
Hello, everyone. It's Dara from the Red Path, hanging out and representing the World Leaders.
And then the silly Doombolt magic man in the corner. Do you want to introduce yourself?
The one and only David from Tiscum Podcast.
And we are all here to obviously talk about some of the recent changes because some of us are happy, some of us are sad, and some of us are still just as angry and wanting to kill everything as it started. And I'm sure the YouTube algorithm is going to love that and not flag that word killing in the first 2 minutes instantly. But, you know, the monster is here. So, yeah, we're obviously going to talk about the changes. Quite a bit happened, more for some than others. But it's, you know, definitely going to mix up the game and where we all sit in the power levels of each god. But before we get into the actual power things, are you guys excited for the reveal of the Emperor's Children?
Honestly, yeah, like, to be honest, I low-key, I think it's like a joke in our community that everyone's like, Dara's like one step away from being a Slanesh follower anyway, so I'm like, maybe that step could come real soon. I think for me, it's like very much depending on like the design road they go down. Could be super interesting or it could be super uninteresting. So I'm hoping they really like push the boundaries. Like I did like the Hedonite stuff they did for Age of Sigmar, if I'm allowed to say that word here.
Yeah,
I thought that
I've
new
already
stuff.
ruined it anyway. I said killing.
Yeah,
We're all
fair.
good.
I thought that stuff was really cool. And I hope that they do something similar with EC. But I'm excited to see the reveals. Hopefully we'll see something during WCW preview. But yeah, it's cool to have the Pantheon fully filled out, I think.
It is. What about you, David? How are you feeling for Emperor's Children? Indifferent or are you excited?
I'm pretty indifferent. I mean, I'm excited about them. I think it'll be great to see Fulgrim. Maybe they'll make Eidolon, you know, hopefully Luscious gets a nice new model and, you know, new Noise Marines across the board. It'll be really cool. But I mean, there's so much stuff I've built, such a huge backlog of stuff to do. I'm excited to potentially see something around Dark Mech at some point. The fact that they're rolling out in 30K kind of makes me really have, like, what is it? Hope that I shouldn't have, essentially, that they will actually get a codex and Vashtor will actually be half decent. Yeah, false hope is so backlog of stuff to play with, and you know that's keeping me entertained for now. So it's like I just don't need another army to be excited about to go collect. So
that's fair enough. I think even I might be tempted to. I think it kind of comes down to the same thing as you, Dara. It kind of depends. Like it's really going to depend on how the models look, because if they go like I don't know, do you want like all the body horror or do you want it to be more like the head?
I want all the body horror.
All the body horror.
Yeah, I want it all. Give me the snake people, you know. I just think if they keep them very Legionnaire-esque, it's just going to end up being kind of like another CSM army painted different. I want to see like, I mean, it's the army that you could arguably say you can explore the most amount of body horror with, you know.
Yeah.
That or Deck Guard, I would say. So I'm curious.
Stuff they get right.
Yeah.
Like with you know Death Guard and all the unique stuff they got, Thousand Suns, World Eaters with like their 8-bound and things like that. I mean, it's they get that's unique to the army, and hopefully they do them a little bit better than they did World Eaters, and hopefully World Eaters gets their models that they need. So
second wave's coming. Second wave's coming.
Sure. Let's all get on that copium train.
Right?
We'll see where it goes.
I mean, I do hope it'll be a decent release because again, it could go the way of like Death Guard where it's like full demon engines, all the stuff to support it, or it could be just like here's 1 or 2 elite units, use the CSM codex, which I hope it's not going to be. Or they could go the Thousand Suns route where it's just troops and characters. Because
I could totally see them getting the T-Suns World Leaders treatment. If it's a mid-edition launch, I don't think they're going to get like, you know, a massive range. I think it's going to be maybe 6 to 8 units, probably about it.
Yeah, let's sort of like Votan.
Random side question here, like
yeah?
side quest. So they announced in the data slate post that's up there on the Warhammer community, they announced that at the end of the year, or before the end of the year, we kind of get another surprise update, which I think kind of it caught me off guard. I thought this was going to be the last one for the year. They're saying that they're going to try to redo regular Marines, and not to get into whether regular Marines, what they need and everything, but I'm curious if you guys think that they're actually going to take that as an opportunity to finally seal off the different code, like the non-core codex Marines, from being able to take those core detachments, if they should.
What's your opinion, Dara?
I think because they've already put them out as supplements. I think the way they should do it is if you want to run BA, for example, you can only use the BA detachments. You can't take Gladius or Stormlance or anything. It's very simple. It's very cut and paste. It's very easy to do. That would be a good solution. It doesn't curb a lot of the problems. The main problem is the fact that the specialist chapters inherently just are better because they have a larger unit pool.
Yeah,
that's not really going to solve it. Marines are complicated. The Marine win rate is bad because lots of new players play Marines at tournaments and get spanked. It's what happens to a lot of people. It happened to me. Sure, it happened to you guys when you started playing tournaments, probably with Marines.
I've never lost a game. What are you about, Dara? Never lost a single
that's
game.
That's true. But look, we can't all be as talented as you, Aiden. But
I just cheat all the time. It's fine. 11 colors, all that kind of...
What was it? I was talking to Brian and Ryan last night about it, and he's like, the only people who've beaten me are cheaters, and the only people I beat are bad. And I'm like, okay.
It's that meme.
So I guess I played a lot of cheaters.
He's waiting for it.
But yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting. The whole concept of this balance window, which I guess we're going to talk about, is pretty funny because it's this is here for 2 months, So I think if you're upset about the MFM and how it did you, the majority of players actually want to have a tournament in this balance window, and then Christmas is going to happen, and who knows what's coming there. Maybe they take some time to look at the indexes and say, hey, if you don't have a book, maybe you're going to get a little boost. We'll have to wait and see.
Please.
But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one at December.
Yeah, I mean, if they do this, I'm in agreement. I would happily see them cut off the supplement chapters from the core detachments because it gives them a bit of an easy way to balance things. Again, it's not going to be perfect. The problem is Eradicators in X detachment are just going to be fundamentally different power level than in another detachment, and those things are shared. So how do you balance that? It's probably it's a nightmare. It is a balancing nightmare for them, but it would at least give you some extra dials to mess with because now you don't have to worry about, okay, cool, we're going to buff Stormlands because White Scars really suck. And we want to make that better. Oh god, oh no, Wolf Shale's back ×2. You don't have to worry about that as much. So I'd be happy to do that. Plus, it doesn't really make sense. If you go away from the codex, the whole point is they're divergent chapters. They don't follow the codex.
You don't fight the codex.
Yeah,
right?
you should fight in your own weird way, with Angelic Host. And admittedly, that they probably would need to buff, because the reason. Let's be honest, the reason they're running the core detachments is because their own ones, Pablo Ninjas, that's pretty good. But the Dark Ninja ones, kind of on their own, kind of suck. So they would need to do some balance. But I would rather see them boost their own and give them incentive to run their own detachments, rather than them being able to play Gladius and all that stuff and basically not drag down, because they drag up technically the win rate, don't they? But they, in doing so, they choke out anyone trying to play any of the vanilla Marine chapters that isn't, especially not Ultramarines. Ultramarines is okay still because they got so much good characters, but everyone else is just dead. I've not seen Iron Hands, Raven Guy, anything like that in so long.
I mean, it is the problem whenever you have we'll say a restriction in terms of be it detachment or unit pool. A way to break that restriction will get exposed and then will become the thing. Then you have all the good players who flock to do the thing. Then the win rate gets driven into an area that isn't really realistic. And then, that gets nerfed. The good players leave and all the people who are still playing the faction suffer. That's what we've seen with Marines. Now, I don't really think Marines are actually that bad fundamentally. No. I do genuinely believe that a lot of new players at tournaments play Marines. How many players have you played who are like, this is one of my first tournaments or my first tournament, and they're literally playing Marines? I have run into that
Yeah.
person like so many times, you know.
Yeah, and then the thing is, like, that's the common thing when I come across Marines. There's a bit where I get scared when they're like, oh no, I play Marines all the time. And I'm like, oh no, this guy could actually be good at Marines. Because, like,
Yeah.
if you actually look at, like, Gladius, for example, like, I would pay anything to have Gladius rules. That thing is insane.
It's really
like,
good.
It's such a
Yeah.
good toolbox, but again, unless you know how to use the toolbox to its full power, it's not as obvious as, certain armies which just like, uppy downy every turn, monolith go burr.
But I think it's like,
right now it'd be basically like us being able to take CSM detachments, and that's kind of what the regular Space Marines have right now. And to me, that never really made sense why they, like, I get why they did it, because they wanted the other Marine chapters to be able to have something before their codex comes out. But now that they came out, I feel like it would have been a better solution to just say, look, Space Wolves can use the core, Blood Angels, once your codex is out, you use just those.
Yeah, it's like you cut offline.
At the end of the day, the data part of it is, I think, the thing that GW is missing out on. If you think of it like them trying to balance everything, if everybody is running Gladius because it's hands and feet, toes, and whatever higher and better than every other detachment that's out there, then they're not getting data on the codex detachments because no one's using them. Like, no one's out there running Inner Circle, so you don't know. Well, Inner Circle's win rate is what, 35, 40%, whatever it is. So they don't have any data on that because they don't get enough games played with it. And I think that's what they need. They need to be able to, like, get stuff so that the data that they need to make those decisions is there.
That's a good point, because you're not going to get people playing Unforgiven Task Force when Gladius exists, and how do you actually know how bad Unforgiven, or maybe it's not as bad as people think, until people actually start playing it. So yeah, it's actually totally get that. Just very quickly, $10 super chat from Death Guard Dave, who runs the channel with me. Let's go Pantheon. Thank you very much, Dave. And Jordan Alexander Dubois, thank you very much for coming.
I'm money laundering.
Shut up, Darren. But yeah, another thing I just want to point out before we get into chaosy stuff, because obviously people are here for chaosy stuff, is one thing that made me positive about that same announcement, David, about the them addressing that there's going to be a balanced data slate, is they specifically called out Miracle Dice being a problem, and they said we're basically looking at a way to fix Miracle Dice. So I'm glad that even though they've like nerfed Sisters points, even though it's still incredible, they still acknowledge that it's probably not enough, and they need to do some rules changes, because I mean, Miracle Dice, Fate Dice, I hate them so much. Like, you just take a dice game out of a dice game. And imagine if you could bang, I mean, like, you probably already can bang every charge you want because you can go so fast, but imagine if you knew you could bang every 12-inch charge you wanted, Dara.
Oh, it'd be crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, you take the variance out of the actual game, the game becomes quite easy. But yeah, no, I'm glad they're going to be addressing that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I am excited for that, because this is obviously just an MFM update. This was just like points mainly, a couple FAQs. Did you guys get a weird FAQ? Because I got some FAQ changes like infected objectives and typhus. Did you guys get anything FAQ? Because I haven't checked your FAQs.
Yeah, they fucked my blood surge right up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That was rough.
Yeah, that was a bit rough. Anything for Thousand Suns before we address the search move? Well, I think you're on mute. You're on mute, mate.
I think we've lost them.
We've not lost him. I think he's just trying to get himself unmuted.
Oh.
Oh no! Now I'm like halved in the face.
We're halfway between.
Oh
nice.
no!
Yeah.
Oh dear. Do you want to explain your surge move then, while we've all become a chaos spawn on the screen?
Whatever union of us there is. It's pretty simple. They basically limited. They unified all surge moves, which is super good because there was a lot of them and they weren't all the same. So that was kind of silly. And they basically made it so that all surges now have like a set number of bullet points, which is like you have to do these things.
Yeah.
And one of those things, the only one that changed how the World Leaders one operates, is that you cannot surge more than once in a given phase, unless otherwise stated. Which is kind of confusing because the World Leader specific blood surge says each time model gets killed from this unit they can surge, but it's whatever. They use berserkers as the actual example in the FAQ, so I assume berserkers can only surge once. I think a lot of people got like really freaked out by this, and I think the reality of the situation is it's not that bad because there wasn't that many times that you were surging twice with a berserker unit and it mattered.
Yeah.
What it does mean is that your opponent is now able to be a little bit more, what's the word, like predictive of where they're going to be because you can just stand like more than 7 inches away and you're like, okay, it's going to be fine. Whereas before you could be like, I might have to stand like 13 inches away because who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think ultimately it's like a good change, mainly because like the accursed cultists were the real reason why the surge changed. Those guys were pretty toxic.
Yeah.
And as someone who loves accursed cultists, I will straight up say it was like very good that those guys got nerfed hard because they badly needed it.
Accursed
And
cultists
you
were
know,
wild.
as someone running chaos cults, it didn't change the amount of accursed cultists in my list at all. So here we are.
So overall, surge move not as bad as you thought. The nerf.
It's like definitely annoying, that's for sure. It's good that they like homogenized it across all surge moves. That's super good.
Yeah, the last thing we need is like 50 different versions of the same rule, but slightly different because that stuff drives me insane.
Right. I mean, I am also of the opinion that at this point, just make it one of the USRs and just call it like surge moves.
Yeah, just call it surge.
Because they literally in the FAQ they like gave it a name. I think they literally called it surge moves, and I was just like, come on, guys, we're like so close to the finish line here.
It's almost there. David, welcome
But yeah,
back. Now in the
fine.
garden, apparently.
Yeah, have you guys?
Yeah,
swapped
so I
positions?
had a complete hardware failure on my other machine, so I'm on my backup computer now. So sorry about that, but I'm still here.
No, it's
Nice.
cool, man. We were just saying, was there any FAQ for Thousand Sons? So not points yet, just because Dara obviously had his blood surge nerfed, which is obviously a bit shit. But he's just explained them when you were it's kind of like if he was getting it off 2 times for berserkers, you probably lost a lot of the berserkers at that point. And if someone was shooting you with like cultists and just letting you surge for free,
Yeah.
like you probably deserve
If you
to
shoot me
lose
with
that.
bolt guns once and I lose a model in surge, and then you shoot me with bolt guns again and I lose a model and another surge, you deserve to lose the game. Like, I'm sorry.
Like even if you didn't know, you see what they did the first time and you don't think about it. And like
I've given you
you're
the
not gonna
learning
learn?
experience and you've chosen to throw it away. So you know.
Okay.
Monkey shoot, neurons no activate. Me shoot again.
So we've had this weird thing happening in the Thousand Suns Codex, and it's funny because I don't know how much it's been a thing over your side of the pond, but for us, one of the interesting things that's come up, and this has happened, at Tacoma for the U.S. Open. I actually sat with the GW judges. We went over this in depth to understand the intricacies of it. So ultimately, really, the model it really comes down to is Magnus, and what had been coming up over the last like year or so, not this FAQ but the previous one, there was a lot of discussion about line of sight around the wings on his model, and what they ultimately settled in the last FAQ, again not this one but the last one, was that had Magnus and he's sitting right behind a ruin.
Yeah.
And let's say his wing is in the ruin itself. It's overhanging into the ruin. Well, you cannot draw line of sight to Magnus to that wing, even though the wing is overhanging the ruin. Where players are getting confused is when that wing sticks all the way through to the other side of the ruin, and you can. Because actually drawing line of sight over or through or in the ruin.
Yeah.
It's created a lot of confusion because EW's tried in this latest one to rewrite the FAQ a little bit, and what happened was just added more confusion because people were assuming, oh, this is a change to what was in there before, or they didn't understand what was in there before, and it was just a clarification of it to try and word it a little bit better. And it's this really long, lengthy, confusing sentence around what counts as line of sight with a ruin, what doesn't, and ultimately we've got these funny MS Paint diagrams that are floating around our Discord server that are helping people try to understand the concepts of it. So it really just comes down to, if you are drawing line of sight, or your line of sight to Magnus, like through a ruin or over a ruin or anything like that, you can't do it to the wings. You have to do it like to the base or the part of the model that is directly over the base. It's once You take that out of the equation, like the wings sticking all the way through or around the side or something like that. Well, the rules for ruins don't even come into play because it's just direct line of sight to the wing. So
yeah, I won't lie. That
was
one even
ours?
got me because I saw the red text. I was like, oh, they've changed it. They hadn't actually, like you said, but it got me. And then the worst bit is when I was like trying to figure it out. I went with the initial thing where I'm like, wait, are we always measuring to the base now? Like even without the ruin? And then I was like, okay, so what was it for again? This change? It's just like. And then my favourite bit on that bit, that specific bit of text, what they changed, it says, see diagram below. So I'm like, oh, cool. You scroll down, it involves a tank, which is completely different. There's nothing to do with what they've just said. I'm like, thanks, GW.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise, our codex has been pretty straightforward. There hasn't been a lot that's really kind of needing clarification or has been really confusing, in our codex.
I would say your codex is anything but straightforward. It's like the most convoluted book.
Listen, silly magic, man.
I forget that I've lived in this for like 2 years now, so for me, this is the normal. So you get used to chaos, and I think 3 turns ahead about double moving stuff and things like that. But so ultimately, yeah, I mean, I'll get the monkey off my back here, like the elephant in the room or whatever it is. Got nerfed to hell. I mean, Thousand Suns got absolutely destroyed here, and they did it with points. They did it well beyond what I was expecting. I figured Magnus was going to go up. He went up about as much as I thought he would. The sorcerers, some of the sorcerers I expected to go up, like Infernal Master, the Exalted Sorcerer, made sense when they started nerfing the Infernal Master, because those are the only 2 sorcerers outside the Terminator one that give you 2 Cabals. The rest of the stuff, I think, was kind of this was, or maybe the Mutilith you could throw in there as well, but everything else was kind of like, okay, I guess you're nerfing that too. Yeah, it's I will say there are still stable lists. We can still double Doombolt. We can still run all the nasty stuff that you're still used to seeing. It's just our other stuff, or our ability, I think, to play primary on a lot of missions is now going to be challenged. I think a lot of lists were running 3 Mutalists over here, and now that's kind of, do you run 3? Do you run 2? What do you do now? Where do you get? You're about 100 points or so is what you've got to find in most lists right now, and I don't know where everybody's going to find it. It's got to come from somewhere, like a rubric squad, but then you've got a hanging. The interesting thing is then you have a hanging sorcerer that's off by themselves, and that's kind of a weird thing to have to try and solve.
Yeah, it was not kind to you guys for sure. Now, admittedly, I will say I think you needed something, but I always find when they got, like, I don't know what it is. Okay, and I want your guys' opinion on this because I've ranted on this way too much. Why, when they nerf stuff like Necrons, my favorite, they give them like pity, like consolidation buff. Like the Doomsday Arc came down in points. Can't fathom why. They dropped a load of stuff. They fixed Obsidian Fans. And I'm not against that because it's cool to make other playstyles work. But whenever I see them nerf Chaos, they just bury it. Like like CSM last, like when Codex came out, they just like absolutely dumped a ton of points on it. World Eaters copped it last time as well, and Thousand Suns have copped it again. And it's not just like delicate. That page was red.
I got my compensation buff this time though. The Wing Prince went down 25 points.
Is that the good one?
No. No.
I think there's like 2 problems there. Well, one is definitely think, yeah, the perception when we're looking at it is that Chaos gets hit pretty hard a lot of the times. I think there's a lot of really good players that are out there that play Chaos, and so probably puts a spotlight on us sometimes when we don't want it. Then one of the other things is we don't have models to really do what, like, if you look at Necrons and their catalog of models that they have to work with in units, they have that flexibility to say, oh, these units over here that behave this way get nerfed, but then maybe we'll throw you a bone over here with this other play style in the army. We only have one play style, right? You get, like, for us, it's just our sorcerers and whatever trash we bring. And World Eaters just they run forward, and that's it. So I mean,
hey, Dara spent 40 minutes making a video all about staging. I'll have you know, he does not just run forward.
That's true. Not only that, it's like our most popular video this year. So apparently, there's a lot of intellectual World Eater players.
I think that's probably the main part of it. I like
Hmm.
oversimplifying it for World Eater players.
It's entirely fair.
Run
But
forward,
I would
smash.
say that I think they actually did that whole compensatory buffing really well with CSM this time, because they obviously they nerfed the ACDC bricks, which is like totally fair. And they nerfed like maybe one or two other things, but they actually buffed quite a lot of really interesting units that had been nerfed the previous time around. So like, you know, Warp
Dara,
Talons,
Havocs. Did they fix them?
Havocs,
Did they
I
go
think
down in
are
points again?
pretty good now. Yeah, I would say if you're gonna bring one, it'll probably be a Blitz. A Blitz are pretty good. I think we're gonna see a lot of a Blitz in the next
You reckon?
while, I would say. Yeah, a Blitz in Veterans of the Long War is like a drug that people aren't ready to start taking, but they will soon. Um, I think actually how they did CSM is brilliant, and like even the Accursed Cultist squads, they didn't up the small squad, they only upped the big brick squad, which I'm like, okay, they're starting to get a feel for it. I actually really love what they did with CSM. The problem is, like, what are you supposed to do when you get to World Eaters and you decide that you have to nerf Angron? Like, where do you turn for your compensatory buffs? Like, do you give them to 8-bound? Probably not a good idea. So do you give them to Berserkers? Well, they're already 90 points for 5. Can't get much lower. And then it's like, okay, cool, I'm out of units. So
give it to the Demon Prince. It's fine. Give it to that.
I guess that's where it went this time. I mean, I would have said it would have been pretty sick if they gave it to the Hellbrute. He's like almost there, but you know, it's a small point. I just think I mean Dave said it really well. We don't have the depth in the unit pools. I would say arguably maybe you do, Aiden. You have like a bit more
Potentially, yeah.
versatility, but I mean, T-Sons and World Leaders, we got one build and that's it.
Yeah, and the worst
Even
bit is,
in Death Guard, like in some of the like when you look at like some of the other armies, Marines is probably a bad example because they're the poster child, but in there you have Gravis, you have Phobos, you have regular tactical stuff. So you've got play styles in those, like sub play styles within there. And even within Death Guard, with as big as their model range is, I don't know that you really have sub play styles. It's pretty much like this is Death Guard most of the time. You just have a lot more models to work with.
yeah, I feel like
I think
the
it's
most we have
the
is
playstyles are like move slow, move slower.
hey, we have a Demon Engine build which can move 10. That's not bad. That's about as fast as we're getting.
Okay, move slow, move slower, and move super slow. If you're pushing 10 inches of movement as a selling point, to me, of all people, you're losing the battle.
Sorry, Mr. +2 to everything advanced and charge and Mr. Double Move. I'll
Yes.
move my 4 inches and be honest over here.
You'll be happy about it too, with your 37 Terminators.
Yeah, boy. But I mean, it is even worse compounded in Thousand Suns because it's not just your lack of model range. Your rules literally tell you have to take you can't take lots of the other units because they don't generate Cabal points, and that's the one thing like your army needs to do what it does. So it's like even if you could pivot and your compensation buffs there, it's not what you really want to be bringing.
I don't know how they're going to fix that, because if you look at something like a Predator, Thousand Suns, how do you make it so that the Predator interacts with core army rule? Like, you give that some random rule where it kind of like the Hellbrute, where it buffs Cabal stuff around it. I mean, you could, but would that really fit the style of the army and kind of the scheme that's there? It'd probably feel a little bit weird. Or maybe stuff starts to get bonuses when they get targeted or affected by abilities like that. I think also the other thing that's going to be interesting is they change up the Cabal powers that are there a little bit. It's nice that there's a very simple menu, of abilities to use, but maybe if that diversified a little bit further, where there were maybe powers you could use for 1 point, or multiple powers you can use for 2 points, expand it a little bit, and then make it so certain units get benefits when they get affected by those things. It's not just I'm going to run forward, double move, and doom bolt, and that's my core strategy. You no matter what detachment I'm playing, that's the other thing. I don't. They're going to do when it gets to detachments. Our current detachment doesn't really add all that much, other than you get like everybody pretty much just says, okay, I'm going to do devastating wounds for all my psychic attacks.
Yeah.
Then they just sit in it, and like every player I know that I play just says, look, I'm going to use that, and unless I say otherwise, that's what it always is. And so that kind of tells you that there's not not much flavor in the detachment right now either.
Yeah.
So they have their work cut out.
I could, to be honest, I could actually see them cutting the dev wounds off that and just having lethal and sustained as a choice. Because that would actually make you would actually have choices there. But then aren't you just CSM at that point?
As long as they keep dev wounds on enough of the stuff that's important, because that you got to remember the dev wounds are our mechanic for killing big stuff or hard to kill stuff. Like that's just our flat for everything. If you take that away, have like havocs. We don't have eradicators. We have no infantry with heavy weapons other than one dude in every squad. Like we just don't, for some reason, we just forgot about that stuff.
Yeah.
So unless you want us to solve big knights with like 3 predators with las cannons,
you got the Vindicator.
Give me that.
It's more than I can say.
So over to Dara in the middle there. So obviously, do you want to quickly recap what happened to World Eaters and then talk about the impact? Because then after that, I actually have a question to pose to you all because all our Primarchs got something done to them. You two went, oh, mine got cheaper. So I want to pose the question to you after Dara's done this about where do we want our Primarchs? Because I have the opposite problem. Your Primarchs, Dara's can potentially be way too good if you're all 6s. Obviously, Magnus is just insanely good, and mine is now approaching the cost of like I don't know, like
I'll be cheaper than 6 exalted 8-band now.
Yeah, I'll be in the 200s soon.
What was it that you said to me? I've been touting this example. Rodigus and Rodigus and Mortarion are now cheaper than Angron and Glavemo.
Yeah.
Just like.
Stupid.
And I know who I'd rather have in the fight on the table, to be honest. But
yeah. So could you quickly recap the sort of like the points hits you got? We obviously already know the Winged Demon Prince has come down, so is that going to make an impact?
I mean, I'm not sure. I'll get to that one in a sec. But it's really simple. Spawn went up to 70, which is fair. They were the cheapest spawn in the game and also the best spawn in the game. So at some point that train was going to stop. Fair enough. Angron went up as well to 435, which is also probably very, very fair. He was everywhere, and he still will be everywhere, and he's still very good for those points, unless you don't revive him, in which case he's pretty bad for those points. And then the real weird one is Olmos went Master of Executions, for those who don't know. They went up to 110 points base, which means they're 135 with the enhancement that you pretty much have to take for them. So 135 points for 4-wound model with no invulnerable save is definitely a vibe.
That's insane. Like he's more expensive than Azrael, and Azrael brings what 4 pin for his entire squad, automatic command point, gives the entire squad sustained, has a really good melee and a really good gun.
Yeah. So we do get obviously fight first on a berserker unit, which is really good. Very powerful defensive mechanic, but I mean, like that's only good when you're in a combat v combat situation. Otherwise, it's kind of like, well,
I'm against Tau today.
Okay. I mean, I guess I'll precision out that ethereal inside the Pathfinder unit, even though I was going to kill the whole thing anyway with just the berserker activation. And the thing is, like, you know, some people are like, oh, does this mean we have to drop mode? The answer is no. You know, he's very expensive for what he does. He's still good. The real problem is we just don't have really any infantry replacements. Because if you're already bringing Karn, you don't have a choice. You have to bring Mo. He's our only other option. So the World Leader changes are a real good example of what happens when you have a low unit pool in your actual collection. And the unit pool is good, but when it gets nerfed, they just force you to bring whatever wasn't nerfed hard enough. Or even continue to bring the nerfed stuff and just cut things out of your list.
Yeah.
And the reality of the situation is now, particularly when it comes to non-Gron base lists, which is kind of like my forte, my non-Gron base list now has 24 various 8-bound bodies. And that's pretty much it. Like 24, it's like 3x3 8-bound and 2 6-man exalted squads. And I think maybe a 3-man exalted squad as well. And then like a couple of other scoring bits. And like that's what a lot of lists are now. It's just like, cool, more 8-bound. Because they're still very, very good and they'll get the job done. And when nerfs like this happen, we don't really have anywhere to pivot to other than just more 8-bound. So that's kind of like the lame thing. And the Demon Prince came down, the winged one. If they brought the foot Demon Prince down, I think we would actually genuinely see like good
Yeah.
play there. But the winged Demon Prince, I don't know if you guys know, he's got a pretty funny rule where he picks something at the start of the battle and he gets full rerolls
it's
against
that
it.
guy.
And then if he doesn't kill it, he dies at the end of the game. So great one for assassinate if you're playing against that guy. But yeah, I mean, he's super cute. Like, he doesn't do a lot of damage. He's AP2. He's got 7 attacks. And that's about as good as he's going to get. Like, he's 195 points when you put the half damage enhancement on him. But for 155 points, you can get 3 Exalted 8-Band, who can also Deep Strike and will do more damage and can go through walls. And that you can say that about like so much of the index right now.
Yeah.
It's like, I could get this thing, or I could get this many 8-Band. And that's just where it is, which is super lame. Now, there are still some super competitive lists. Like Ryan from our channel has basically shifted around his competitive list a little bit. And myself and Brian have been playing that recently, and we're like, holy shit, this list is very, very good still. In fact, it might even be better in the current environment. So that list is really good. He just took 3rd at a major last weekend with it, with the new points, beating Blood Angels twice, which is pretty cool. So I think there's like obviously competitive builds out there. They just look pretty much exactly the same as what they have before. Like, I could show you the list that I'm running now, and I could show you a World Leader list from like a month ago, and the only change is the Juggerlord with Favorite of Corn goes out and 5 Berserkers go in. That's like the flat change, you know? And it's Army still plays the same way. Nothing really changes. What changes is our opponents. So like, as soon as I saw these changes, I was like, okay, lame. All I care about now is reading what happened to everyone else and knowing what I need to fight.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting for me.
And
so that's where I'm at.
You have put a video up on that on your new fella. Is it Ryan? Did you say?
Yes.
Yeah. You have got a video up on his run, haven't you? Got sort of recapping it.
I think it just dropped. Yeah. So
if people are interested in the chat, you're a World Eaters fan, or you want to go see how World Eaters are doing in the new meta, you've got a perfect example right there to go and have a look.
But don't leave the stream. Watch it afterwards. And one of his games was actually 2 of his games were streamed on Tabletop Live.
Awesome.
Both against Blood Angels. So
nice.
If you need a clinic on how to beat those guys, because this is the thing. I think World Leader players are really going to struggle into Blood Angels because they got some aggressive point cuts. And I think if you don't have a plan for fighting against them, they're going to hurt you in a lot of ways. And I think that goes across the board for like all 3 of us. That army is going to be very challenging now.
I can see that. So just very quickly, I'm just going to really quickly recap Death Guard for people who are listening, because it's obviously I run a Death Guard channel. You're literally on it right now. I have like 4 hours of streams over the last 2 days talking about Death Guard changes, so go check that out. But TLDR is point come down, happiness go up. Mortarian's now 300 points, which is ludicrous, and again leads into the next question I'll ask. Death Shroud came down. You had money on a unit that wasn't coming down in points. It was probably on the Death Shroud, so why they came down, no clue, but I'll take it. And
how many points are they now, Aiden?
110 for free, the same as Bullgrin.
Also the same as the Master of Executions without an enhancement.
That is true. I know what I'd buy.
Same.
Yeah. And the only real change we got our infected objectives are now permanent, which is obviously pretty cool. It's not a huge change, but it's nice. Quality of life actually means I might actually get to use some of my enhanced stratagems, whereas before, like, you just unstick it and cool, all my rules are gone for that. So it's a nice quality of life, but it doesn't really make a huge difference. It just kind of opens up certain skill ceiling went up a little bit for like player expression and those things, which is cool. And Typhus got FAQ'd to be like the silly Doombolt man over there, and unfortunately I can no longer snipe lone up characters as well, which makes me the big sad. But you know, it probably is fair.
Come on now, you can't be shocked about that one.
Yeah, if he can't do it, you can only surge once. I guess I can't do it either. Yeah, I'm not shocked about it at all. But yeah, overall, like we're definitely Death Guard's the winners out as all 3 of us in terms of the balance changes, because we're the only one that like realistically gain stuff. You guys both, like you said, having to make cuts in your list and stuff like that. But one topic I did want to talk about, because it's quite a big one, and it's to do with Primarch design. And it mainly becomes actually because I listened to one of your streams, Darren. It was one thing you said. Like, people say that Angron's really good and stuff, but I don't know if you said you hate Angron's design but you really don't
Oh, I
like
do.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think the exact quote you said is when people lose with Angron, they use the excuse that, oh, Angron didn't come back. And when they win with it, they win. The opponent says, oh, you only won because Angron came back. Like
Yeah.
it makes like excuses for players in a way. So I wanted to touch on all your so go through our Primarchs because we'll start with Magnus at the end. Um, Magnus would be seen probably as the most powerful Primarch in the game, like way more so than Loyalist. Definitely, I think he's the most impactful on the list. But at the same time, is Magnus a shackle around your ankle because he's that good? Would you rather him be at the level he's at, or would you rather him be less powerful but more of a well, less of an auto take?
Yeah, that's the tough one because probably becomes subjective at that point. Do you? And I even see within our community, there's people that like Magnus being at the state he's in right now, which is basically you have to take him, especially if you're going to play competitive at all. You have to have him in your list, and if you, I mean, if you just run the stats and look through the lists that are out there from tournaments, like, I think at one point it was 100% of the lists had Magnus. Not even one person tried not to run Magnus. I think that kind of two ways. You like it or you don't, and I think that just comes down to personal preference of what you think, how you think the army should play. I am of the opinion that I think that there should be options for you to play without him. It doesn't necessarily mean that that needs to be the strongest, but I think you should be able to say, look, the army, I can take a Thousand Suns list that doesn't have Magnus in it and still operate the same way. I think the problem with Magnus right now in the Thousand Suns Codex, it underlines the lack of breadth for units that can deal with challenges in the game, and that they are there as good support units, but they are not hard enough hitters to stand on their own and actually function the way they need to. So the unit outside of Magnus in our lists is the Arcane Vortex guy with the Infernal Master, or the enhancement on the Infernal Master, and that, I mean, that really is the only other thing that just it strikes fear into people. Outside of that, everything else is just. Well, Mutable Vortex Beasts are a great example of this. You fear playing Thousand Suns because they have three of them. No, they're easy to kill, right? Like you can deal with them pretty easily as long as you understand what their saves are and what's good into them. They will disappear from the board. But it's the other stuff that you're trying to get to and the fact that you don't want to deal with the Mutalists. That's what makes them a problem. And I think that ultimately, when you look at Magnus the way he is right now, I would prefer the Primarchs to be all relatively similar across all the armies. Like I think the disparity between Mortarion and Magnus has never been more glaring right now, in that you have you essentially have two demon Primarchs that should be relatively power wise similar, but you have one at 300 points and one almost at 500 points at this point. And that to me doesn't seem, I think it points more to Mortarion's rules need to be strengthened rather than necessarily the Primarchs need to be brought down, like nerfed. I think Ingron or Magnus are kind of what you expect from a Primarch in the game, a demon Primarch in the game. And I think they're doing a good job with Gilliman and the Lions so far, where they might need to be a little bit, I mean, maybe even a little bit stronger in what they do, so that there's more like relative parity or I guess internal balancing within the Primarchs, essentially, to say, you know, this is relative to those power levels where it should be. So I guess that's kind of where I land on it.
Yeah, like at any point, so Dara, you can genuinely make a non-gun list, can't you? Like it's not like you're not. What I'm trying to say is there any point where someone could genuinely come up to you with a list without Magnus in it, and you could genuinely say to that person they are not handicapping themselves?
You are, if you're going to play, I say competitively, but I even think if you're even going to try to play the army in a somewhat competent with your friends, you have to have Magnus if you're playing Thousand Suns and you're playing 2,000 points. I think it gets interesting if you start playing at lower point levels, like 1,000 points, and you're taking Magnus. Well, I think that it's kind of funny actually, because it just the game tilts really fast. But I think if you're playing at the standard 2,000 points, you're playing with your friends and they know what they're doing, they understand the game, then I think you have to be running Magnus.
Fair play. So Dara, Angron, I know you have strong opinions on this big angry red man.
Yeah, for
Take
sure.
take it away, because obviously your channel probably hears your opinions a fair bit, but this is the Chaos Pantheon. My
True.
followers, the Zinch followers, we want to hear what a devote, because most people just assume, oh, everyone loves the Primarchs, and obviously because
Yeah, I mean,
people play Angron, therefore Angron good, therefore are you happy with Angron?
I do love Angron, like as a character. You know, I think he's awesome. I've been waiting for Ron for like literally when I started playing World Eaters, which was 8th edition, 7th edition. I love him, and in 9th edition, I ran the pants off him because no one else was doing it. He wasn't very meta back then because Invocatus was the big hot stuff. Um, and like I do like Angron now. You know, I don't hate his rules. I just hate the resurrection mechanic. That's like
Yeah.
the real problem. Um, and like the thing is, he had a resurrection mechanic in 9th edition, and it was actually very fine. No one was really complaining that it was super broken because I guess number one, there was no like variance about it. You knew he was coming back. If you got enough blood tide points, he was just going to come back. And he came back in half wounds, which is like significant because um I was talking about this with one of my buddies after we played on Saturday. And he was saying that if Angron comes back, it's generally speaking, you as the opponent have a couple of things to deal with Angron in your list. And the first time he dies will be to one of those things. The second time the second time he comes back, one of those things is probably gone. So when he arrives at the table again, like you're not going to have the tools to deal with Angron. So a lot of the time when he does resurrect, he just runs rampant through the army. And that's very hard for people to deal with. And I can understand why some people have the opinion of like, oh, I lost that game because Angron came back. And like I've talked about it like ad nauseum at this point. He's a feel bad mechanic. Either I don't bring him back and I feel bad because it feels like I've lost out on points, or I do bring him back and my opponent feels bad because they feel hard done by the fact that I've resurrected a demon Primarch. So in my opinion, that's the real problem with Angron. His damage output is fine. His durability is relatively fine. He's a little bit squishy. His speed is fine. He should be super fast. I was saying this to the guys. Like he doesn't have anything other than go forward and smash.
Yeah.
Like he should be insanely fast. He doesn't have guns. He has a very, I suppose, not situational. He's got a good aura, but like you have to be around him to make that work.
Did he lose his little roar?
Oh, he never had the roar. That's
Oh.
Scarbrand's.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought
No,
Angron had a
I
roar
was
as well.
hoping. In the lore, he's got a revolver, which is like fitted for a demon Primarch. I'm like, come on,
Like,
give him
pulls
that.
out
That
his
would be so
six-shooter.
sick. Yeah, it would
He
be
got that big
amazing.
iron on his hip.
Literally just pulls up with a Desert Eagle. I'm like, all right, cool. I want that for Angron. But yeah, so the way that I've kind of said it, and I think a lot of people like this idea, is if you want to change his rules to make the game feel better, because like fundamentally they're never going to get rid of the resurrection mechanic. I know it's unfair, but he has to have something because he doesn't have guns and he doesn't have other abilities. If he can't resurrect, he will literally just run forward, kill something, and die, and that's not great because we know that bloodthirsters aren't meta, and he would just be a bloodthirster. So what you do is you take it like this: Angron dies. You spend 3 or 4 of your blood dice, and he comes back. You don't get those blood dice for the rest of the game. They're gone.
Ooh.
So you want to bring Ron back, all your blessings are going to be very close to impossible, if not very hard to achieve. And if he dies again and you want to bring him back again, no more blessings for the rest of the game because you've spent the other ones.
That's
Or maybe
interesting.
just cap it at 1. And then that way,
I like that.
a lot of people like that. I think it's pretty cool. Everyone knows he's coming back, so you can't use it as a complaint because it's like, well, you knew it was going to happen, so it's on you if you didn't plan for it. And when he does come back, it's to the detriment of the rest of your army, which is actually quite fitting in the lore because Angron hates his boys so much. And I'm kind of like, if he comes back, it should drain them, like it. Because before it was like, yeah, you spend a lot of your skull or whatever it was called, blood tithe points to get him back, and that was good. You were giving up army rules to bring a Primarch back. And even then, because it's guaranteed, he should either go up to maybe around 500 points, or he should stay around 415, 435, but come back on maybe 8 wounds, we'll say, something like that, like half wounds. I think that would make Angron way more fun to play against, a lot more fun to play with. The problem is there's some like external issues such as like the secret mission in terms of reviving him on your opponent's home field and just scoring 25 points. That is like a thing. And if that's guaranteed, that's I guess you can play around it a little bit better, but yeah, I don't know. I think that the resurrection is Angron's biggest problem. He's still close to an auto take in every list. You can run Nongron, and a lot more people are running Nongron now. Um, but like, I mean, as the person who literally ran Nongron for an entire year, going back to Ron now, like it's a significant enough difference in power level between the lists. Like Nongron is still good. You can do quite well with it. You could actually win a GT with Nongron, I would say. But like if you want to push for your major wins, you know, your 64 plus player wins, you're gonna have to have Ron in that list, I think, or have a really good run. So yeah, I don't know. I think I would love to see him changed. And I've sent GW that rule set being like, please change him to this. So if it comes up, y'all know it was me.
Yeah, so if that happens, we can all worship Dara as the savior of Angron.
Yeah, true.
And then obviously bringing up the weakest of our Primarchs is Mortarion at the end. Mortarion's plagued by just not good rules.
He's plagued.
He's plagued. Now, don't get me wrong, the ignore all modifiers are his best thing. The problem with that is there are some games it doesn't actually come up. Like some armies just don't have many like defensive modifiers. And his output is for a Demon Primarch, woeful. 5 attacks, flat 4 damage. Flat 4 damage isn't decent. I have no problem with the strength and the AP and the damage. They're fine. It's just the amount of attacks. Like, you can genuinely, you run into a unit that's got 4 pinballs, you can be there for like 3 turns. And you have no fallback, no fallback and charge, nothing like that. Because even if you give him something like that, that would help massively because it stops you getting bogged down. But we went from having like 7 attacks last edition to 5 now, and I just can't understand why you'd ever write 5 out on a Primarch's like stat line.
Why does he get 5 attacks and Magnus has like 7? Angron, I think, has similar. It's like 7. I think it's 7
19.
attacks for Magnus.
Silence, you angry boy. Yeah, and
doth not come into this room with number of attacks against me.
And like, what strength is Angron again on the charge?
I don't know. I just say winning on 2s most of the time.
Yeah, and Magnus is the same.
It is.
I'm the only Primarch that can like drop dice on 2s because I'm real monster wound aura, and I'm like, cool, I'm winning you on 3s because I'm like strength like 14 only. It's like I think it might be 16, but still, like there's a lot of things in the game like vehicles. I'm wounded on 3s. I don't have any bonuses to wound, so like it's such a feels bad when you roll like 2 2s, and I can't reroll hits either. So if I drop a 1 on the hit roll on average, I've got 4 hits, and then I drop another 1 on the reroll, I'm like, take 3 saves. It feels so bad.
If you wanted to get it similar, would it be something like more instead of Mortarion's ignore modifiers, would like +1 to hit and wound to all plague weapons within 6, including himself, essentially? You know, would that as his rule replacement for that on top of whatever aura or whatever the ability is you choose each round?
I mean,
would that improve it?
I mean, +1 to hit and wound as an aura for like all weapons that have lethal hits, because that's like plague weapons now, would obviously be great. The problem is people would argue counter synergy, because like, why do you care about +1 to wound and +1 to hit if you're trying to just get lethal hits anyway? But like, lethal hits is a cherry on a cake. Like, you can still enjoy +1 to wound because only 6 of your hits are going to be like lethal hits. So I would happily take that over ignore modifiers, because I mean, but the problem I think that happens then is, if I get +1 to hit and wound with lethal hit weapons, do I just then go back to have my Primarch having a game of I'm going to walk around demon engines because like their weapons have lethal hits, so I'm just gonna like car park around Mortarion and just take PBCs and bloat drones for a walk with +1 to hit and wound? I'd rather see them lean super heavy into the debilitation aspect and give Morty his, like, you know, like we have our contagions right now, -1 save, placement skill, ballistic skill, leadership. I mean, they could do what they used to do in the old days, which is give Morty, he used to be able to pick any of them on top of the one you already had. Yeah. And so he could have -1 ballistic skill, -1 OC leadership, and -1 save at this point. I don't think him running around with that aura
better.
Would be that bad, wouldn't be that oppressive, but at least it sounds like he gets close to it. It's very annoying. I think he has one of his auras that is contagion range for him and everyone near him is increased by 3 inches. I think that could genuinely just be on all the time because he's the stinkiest boy. And I would rather him have like the ability to be tanky, get into the opponent, and everyone near him is literally like throwing up, blowing out of both ends, like struggling to basically function. Because you used to be able to go like no hit, no rerolls aura plus half movement aura, and that was like a pain in the ass to get away from at that point.
But that's what he should be. I mean, like, I should see more Tarion, and I shouldn't be like, oh, he's going to do a ton of damage to me.
Yeah.
But it should just be a series of things, which is like, when I'm near him, things are bad, and when I get into him, he should be really hard to kill. Because, like, right now, he's not hard to kill at all, you know? I could send my 135-point Mo into him, and he'd probably one-tap him.
Yeah,
So,
I'm fine with the lower damage output compared to your Primarchs. Like that, he should never be hitting nowhere as hard as Angron. Magnus, I think we should probably be hitting the same in melee, but obviously you have
Magnus's
way better
melee is
shooting.
wildly good as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's, like, the weirdest bit about
Well,
Magnus to me.
So the sneaky part is that the fact that his melee is psychic, so he's getting +1 to hit and wound on it.
Yeah.
So it's strength 14, or something like that. So you're wounding everything on 2s. You're always hitting on 2s. When you degrade, you're still hitting on 2s unless they have some other modifier on the stack. So I think that's where my question was coming from, was more like, is that kind of what's making Magnus so strong? Is that benefit? I personally think in the way he synergizes with the army, that's the main thing that makes him so good, is just the fact that everything around him gets +1 to hit and wound.
Yeah.
And it includes himself, which he's one of the strongest shooting models in our army. If you do something similar like with Mortarion, where you say, okay, give him 7 attacks, right? Bring his attacks up for his big strikes, and make his interaction with the rest of the Army Corps rule a little bit stronger, then you're probably talking about where he needs to be, and the points can come back up.
Yeah, because I mean, I would happily have a more expensive Primarch that has way more impact on the table. Is good at debilitating things, because like one of our auras we can choose is like everyone in the aura gets cover, but like cover's so easy this edition. Like I've never used that once, because you get cover for having like the wingtip of your thing behind a window 5 yards back. If that was an aura of -1 to hit because the fog's that bad around him, suddenly it's more usable. And I'd actually have a decision to make, because I feel like, do any of you guys actually change your auras much? Like I feel like I never change it.
So I do on Magnus. On Magnus, because he has 2 good ones. He has +2 to movement and -1 to damage, and you can usually tell the experienced Thousand Suns players because they start and +2 to movement, and then they'll move to -1 damage once they know, okay, now he's likely to start taking some damage, because the first turn, he's always staged so that he's not going to take any damage, so make everything move really good. So the third one I've used like once. I think he does something where he gives all of the, like, everything within 12 or 18 gets hazardous for if they attack him. Okay. And so like I've done something sometime before where it was like someone lined up with a bunch of breachers on me, and I said, well, I'm gonna damage reduction didn't matter, movement didn't matter anymore, so I just did that, and then I could just pick the breacher unit and say, okay, it's gonna, they're going to get hazardous, and oh look, like half the breacher squad blew themselves up, trying to shoot Magnus, and that was pretty comical. But yeah.
Yeah,
I just had to check what Angron's other ability was.
Oh, go on, what is it?
Well, I mean, like, so there's like +1 to the charge roll, which is pretty good. He also puts his up in the charge phase, which is pretty good, because when he dies, comes back and then he throws that up in the charge phase. Gets the sweet 8-inch charge. But there's like the full rerolls to hit, which is, so you generally alternate between those two. Mostly it's rerolls to hit, because like what World Leader player really needs +1 to charge? World Leader players with skill issues is what I say. And then the other one, which I actually was like, I wonder what his third one is. It's basically when a World Leader's unit is below starting strength within 6 of Angron, they get +1 attack to each model in that unit, which is kind of funny. I didn't know that was a thing. I don't think that's ever good, because surely reroll all hits is just better than +1 attack.
Yeah, especially in like sustained open as well.
Yeah, I'm like, when is +1 attack the choice over full hit rerolls? I don't know. That's pretty funny. I might have to try and remember that. I'm sure there's a weird situation where that's
just flex on people with it. Just be like, you know what? I'm gonna use this turn.
I just like, why would I use that? It's really bizarre. But yeah, I mean, yeah, look, it's pretty much always reroll hits. It's like our only source of reroll hit aura in the army, so that's kind of one of the ones you have to take. But yeah, I don't know. I think in terms of like ranking who needs the help most, I would say it's like definitely Mortarion. Like that guy, I hate that he's like 300 points, and I don't hate it because I'm like, oh, it's very powerful or whatever. I just hate that that's the state he's in.
Yeah.
Like feel bad for you, bro. You know. And then like Angron because of all the resurrection stuff. I'm kind of like he's somewhere in the middle. Magnus, I'm like kind of a bit more ambivalent towards because I'm like, yeah, he's really powerful, but like he's funny Doombolt, man. Like he should be powerful, you know? I just think the problem with T-Suns is like the whole thing of like you have to bring Magnus. It's not even that Magnus is like that powerful. It's just like there's no choices other than Magnus to do the things that Magnus is doing. So maybe like a range update for those guys might get a bit more interesting. But yeah, I don't know. Sort Mortarion out. Like that guy needs some help.
Definitely. So we'll start to wrap up now because we are hitting that hour point. So last thing just before we go in, just a quick prediction from all of you, like sort of like where do you think if you could have like S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, where would you put your faction now after the nerfs? Or like, where would you have them previously? Where would you have them now? And obviously, I imagine I was going to ask the stupid question: are you still going to be taken into events? I imagine all three of us here are still going to be playing our army. I hope so.
You need to stop asking us that question.
I know. I need to it's actually a test. If anyone says no, I just kick them off instantly. We've got to replace him. And yeah, and where? So yeah, so where do you think we'll start again? Silly mood Doombot man, take it away.
So there's actually I'll start back at a point I forgot to make when we were talking about the points, because one of the reasons I think Thousand Suns got hit so bad was the fact that the U.S. Open in Tampa got canceled, and I think they had these updates planned for them because if you go back to Tacoma, that was the last time they had the U.S. Open event, and there was a lot of us that made the top cut at Tacoma, and it was like 6 or 8 of us or something like that out of, I think it was like 18 or 20 people or so that were in that top bracket. And that's a lot to be up there. And I think a lot of the changes they had queued up, if you look at that in isolation and say, okay, that's your data set for making the changes going forward, then now getting hit as hard as they did makes sense. I think they were expecting to wait until after Tampa to drop this and verify, hey, do they really need these changes?
Yeah.
I think those changes were still we were still going to see nerfs for Thousand Suns.
But maybe they dial.
Well, ultimately, I was looking at this just trying to. Yeah. So this year, from an ITC standpoint, I've been playing for the faction. I had good runs at both Dallas and Tacoma. And I was hoping to play Tampa and then go to LVO and have a chance to win the faction. I think that's probably out of the cards now at this point, just based on the fact that Tampa didn't happen. I had no backup event, so my scores are not where they need to be. So in terms of the rest of the year, am I still going to play Thousand Suns? Yeah, I'll still play them, but I'm likely going to take a detour for a little while and chill out and a couple other armies for a little bit, just to kind of try and reset a little bit so that when the codex does drop, I'm ready to just invest myself again and just get running and I'm not burned out on it. So I don't know about you guys and whether that happens to you, but it does only get burned out on it and I have to go play some other chaos armies.
That's why I have Dara's favorite army here. Look, Dara, it's now fully painted. It's coming for you,
no. I mean, I actually really like the paint job. It's like my favorite color combo.
Color. Yeah.
I mean, a fucking Votan, man. God, yeah, I hate them.
So go on. What tier would you put T-Suns in after these changes then?
I would say probably everybody thought we were probably about S tier. Would be my guess. But again, I remember Aiden here on your listening to you guys yesterday on your live stream about like, well, who's playing the army, right, with Thousand Suns? And that's always the really hard part about it is if you have an average Thousand Suns player, there's a huge difference in an average Thousand Suns player and a good Thousand Suns player with the rule set as it is. And I think that is going to maintain itself. But I think the floor goes lower.
Yeah.
The ceiling comes down a little bit, but I don't think the ceiling comes down as much as the floor went down. I think it becomes harder to do well with them, but I think if you are weathered enough with them, I think you still do pretty well. And I think I've seen some folks still doing quite well with some of the new builds. So I think they get knocked out of the S tier range, but I don't think they come down from A. I think they're probably in the upper to mid rankings of A tier. Because honestly, they're until I see a reason from another army that I mean, Sisters got nerfed, and that was one of our main challengers. Until I see something that shows up like, okay, this is something we don't have a problem for. I mean, there's no reason to really bring them down that much other than everything else getting nerfed the same way. So,
oh, nice. Fair play. Dara, World Eaters.
Same as last time. Yeah, I mean, top end players, like high elo players, not really going to see much of a difference. Like we had a some total of like 51% win rate in the first like season of Pariah. I think that will probably drop overall to maybe like 49%. I think the lower elo players are really going to feel this one. Losing a key unit is going to be tough, but upper elo players probably going to be about the same. We had 6 event wins in the first season of Pariah. I think we'll probably get about maybe 3 or 4 in this like 2 month window.
Nice.
I mean, Ryan literally like almost won an event last weekend.
Yeah.
His car broke down on the way to his tournament, so like the reason why he lost one of his games,
Oh, that's so
which is unfortunate. But yeah, like I think World Leaders are perfectly fine. I would put us in like maybe lower A. I think the current like meta ecosystem is very good for us. Our main predators would arguably be New Blood Angels or possibly Imperial Guard, because those new drop troop things are so toxic for World Leader players that don't have guns.
They need changing. They need to be like.
It is crazy.
You can only use the 3 inches in your own turn because rapid ingress 3-inch move charge block is just gross.
Yeah, especially bad when you don't have guns to.
I have dash. I'm just like, cool, drop in front of me, flamers, go bye bye.
It's real good for you. The Plague Boss has never felt better. But yeah, I mean, there's not really a lot of hard matchups for World Leaders in this one. Like matchups that when I say hard, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm almost certainly going to lose this one.
Yeah.
So I think it's like a pretty good meta for us. I think it'll be fine. Like I said, it's only 2 months, so like ultimately, I don't really care about it that much. Even though I do have a GT and a major in it. But yeah, I don't know. It feels fine. The list remains the same. Advance and Charge still good. Ron still good. 666 still a very powerful way to play the game. Here we are.
That's fair. And Death Guard wise, I think we sit at upper end of B, maybe lower end of A. A bit more matchup dependent than you two guys, because we do have some horrendous matchups. But there'll be a point where 18 Death Shroud and more, he just goes brr, and like you just run people over with that, because that's like, I think it's something like 800 or 900 points. You stick like 1,100 after that to play.
That's so crazy.
Because reasons. So like I think just the pure cheapness of our faction is going to carry a lot of things. But fun fact I did notice is this week was our lowest recorded win rate, because people are jumping to Death Guard thinking it's just easy to play and realizing actually 4-inch move not easy to play, which is quite
no. Do you think you're gonna have like this weird like reverse Space Marine trend where your win rate is just bad because everyone's I have a Death Guard army from the starter box?
I really hope so, because I want to see a 200.
They're just gonna have to lower.
They'll have to drop Mortarion
Just gonna have to
again.
lower Mortarion support again until we will keep dropping the points on Mortarion until the win rate improves.
Do you think how long do you think it's going to be before the Glaive Mo is more expensive than Mortarion? Because we're
on track, we're on pace.
We're on track, yeah.
We're making good time on it. But yeah, I think Death Guard will still be fine. I don't think you're going to be really winning any majors, but again, that's Death Guard in general. You don't really tend to win majors, super majors, but GTs played well. I genuinely think you can win. Maybe a little bit matchup dependent, but part of that, I think we're in I think we're all still in a very playable spot overall. But yeah,
I want to play New Deck Guard. Like I want to play against them and work that out, because I feel like there's a lot of stuff to deal with, and I don't know if I can. But it'll be interesting.
Cheap. Yeah, it would be good. But for now, everyone, we're gonna wrap up there. So, guys, you want to shout out your stuff before? Because everyone's on my channel, so everyone can just look at the channel below for my details. If you want more Death Guard content, check out the Death Guard channel. Surprise, shock, horror. And if someone was interested in running really fast and bludgeoning people to death,
yeah, check out the Red Path. There's a whole bunch of us there now. Just got our newest member joining the team. Lots of good World Leader content, and hop into our Discord as well, where you can talk to lots of people, including Aiden. People bug him about deck card stuff sometimes, but yeah, it's a good place to hang out and just chat about World Leader stuff. So yeah, check us out on the Red Path. Good times to be had.
And if you're interested in the follow Zinch, you can double move yourself over to
tiskinpodcast.com. That's where we post everything. We're also on the Thousand Suns Discord, Thousand Suns Reddit. We've got a number of places you can reach us. We're always talking about bolts and double moving.
and I always refer to them as funny magic men. Or silly
Or
Doom
funny Doom Bolt man.
Yeah, funny Doom that's the one, yeah.
I call Aiden Stinky Poo Man now, so
As accurate in game as in real life. I didn't say that.
indeed.
All right. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning into this episode of Chaos Pantheon. No doubt we'll see you all soon, probably again in 2 months when the actual
Ooh,
date
big Christmas special episode. I can't wait.
Christmas special. And then we'll find out when I need to get the purple banner in at some point as well. but thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we will catch you all on the next episode. Take care, everyone.